Hello, it's Antoinette Lattouf with the Weekend Briefing, and my guest today is Jack Toohey. If you don't know the name, you most certainly know a video that he made that went viral comparing housing in Australia in 1983 to 2023. He has since left his corporate job and wants to commit his life to advocating for some of the most pressing issues of our time, like housing affordability, like climate change, like gender equality. We have so much that we unpack in this discussion, including his new book, Better Things Are Possible. And I prod also what gives him the right, or maybe it's the responsibility, to be a so-called expert on all of these issues. It's a great chat. I hope you enjoy it. Jack Toohey, welcome to the Weekend Briefing.
Thanks for having me.
We have so much to cover in this chat. You've just released a new book. Congratulations on your book, baby. We'll unpack that later. But first, I want to talk about that particular video, which really put you on the map. Mm-hmm. It was about housing and how wildly expensive it is to buy a house now. Those listening probably know about it, but talk me through your thought process when you were like, you know what, I'm going to kind of cut through the housing inequality issue with this piece of content.
Yeah, I think at the time I'd been engaged in a few Twitter wars about housing and had started just to like really crunch the numbers that ended up in the video and trying to like put these very simple things that I could see really clearly in the growth of the housing market comparative to wages and the vastly different housing systems that baby boomers existed in and invested in to today. And I just had all these kind of like disparate tweets probably from these battles happening back in the, probably not the good old days of Twitter. It was probably like, but it was pre-Elon, I guess, or it was maybe the start of Elon.
Right. But Twitter had taken a toxic turn.
Yes. Yeah. It was, I've quit Twitter because it's just hellscape. But at that time, I think it was just on the downward trend. But I just had these numbers sitting in my like Notion on my computer, and I'm like, I could see how this could turn into a video, and I could feel like it was. I had a sense that it was going to be a good video because it really made it very simple.
So you looked at 1983 compared to 2023. Mm-hmm. What made you choose those particular years?
I think that I chose 1983 because it was a little bit before some of the more structural things of like the 90s when capital gains came in. It's enough like kind of lead time to show
before John Howard came in.
But as neoliberalism was starting to take hold, and also like when there was still some kind of like of the good old days where like degrees were free and they were benefiting from good social policy in the 80s that started to change toward the late 80s and into the 90s. So that's why I kind of went there. I also just had a cool shirt and jacket to wear from the 80s, so it just made sense. Yeah. So I got a friend to like who had like a little dad cam, and we filmed it, and I just woke up the next day and it was completely crazy viral. It was at 1 million views at that point. I'm like, wow, this is nuts.
Is huge.
And then it got up to 15 million or something on Instagram and 5 or 6, 7 million on TikTok. So yeah, my life kind of changed overnight as a result. But I think really what it did, it confirmed something that was hard to articulate for a lot of people, that they're getting into conversations or arguments with their parents or parents' generation or older generations and just not being able to meet anywhere similar and feeling like, I think because so much of the Australian story is tied in housing, you kind of go, you do all the right things, you finish university, you finish school, you go to university, and then you meet someone and you adopt a dog, and then you buy a house and you have kids. And that's like the Australian story you see on Neighbours and Home and Away that we've all been like grown up. Yeah. Like believing that that's the correct way to live
love
life.
That in your book, and we are going to get to it more later, you talk about the fact that our two most iconic shows is Neighbours and Home and Away, which are very much settled in particular streets and particular houses. Mm-hmm. And so one had the beach and one was in suburbia, but it was about real estate, essentially. Real estate and relationships.
Yeah, but also just like quite simple lives, and that was the Australian culture. It was like living in a cul-de-sac or living by the beach, and they're really hard things to do now, and that then makes people feel like they're failures. Yeah. That we can't afford a house must mean that we've done something catastrophically wrong. If Toady Rebecca can afford a house, you know, he's just a good old larrikin. Like, what's he doing? Yeah. And so that, I think the kind of the common comment in the comment section was this, wow, I feel like I've got a way of understanding that I'm not actually a failure, which was like quite a profound thing to be exposed to beyond the just broader economics of it. Like, I think that's a really unseen part of our cultural conversation around housing, is just the fact that it is intensely personal.
And you'd been working in marketing before then,
Yeah.
so you weren't, I guess, a newbie entirely to making content.
No.
What had you studied, and where did you think your career and life was going before this?
Well, so yeah, I didn't take the traditional path as much as I'm saying you're meant to go to university. I never went to university, which I'm sure will annoy people that I've written this book about so many big issues
Yes.
that I don't have any formal kind of training. But I guess I went to the School of Hard Knocks. No, I just
But you didn't go to the School of Hard Knocks. You grew up in a privileged family.
No, exactly. I was really lucky. Grew up in the leafy North Shore. Went to a private school. I think through the private school was a school in the city. I was exposed to homelessness. There was an Aboriginal campus on site, and I was kind of introduced at a younger age when I could have been insulated in my privilege. I think I was given opportunities to look outward.
Yeah, you could have gone into banking or something.
Yeah, well, that's the classic path, right?
Yeah.
But I never really loved like the academic side of school.
Yeah.
I loved going on camps or being in the musical or playing rugby on the weekends. I just loved being out and about and doing things. And I guess that's how I've kind of always learned as well, just by doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that comes with instant fame and going viral is instant critique and scrutiny. And you also mentioned that in the book.
Yeah.
Before you knew it, there were all these Daily Mail hit pieces. Why? What were they about? If you can remember.
Well, it's the classic thing. Like the hit pieces were about the fact that I came from a privileged family, that my dad worked for Macquarie Bank for a few years. And yeah, like I went to a private school. My parents are relatively well off. They like made it out like he's this big millionaire because he owns a house in Sydney.
Yeah.
Everyone that owns a house in Sydney these days is now a millionaire effectively. And that, I guess, just devalues, I think, when you're talking about economics, like economic disparity and inequality, then a lot of people rush to this thing to like discredit anyone that has any kind of privilege to then be involved in the conversation about inequality, when I believe that people with more privilege have more responsibility to involve themselves in conversations about inequality and reforming that.
Yeah, I agree. Like if you acknowledging your privilege, what I often say is privilege is not a dirty word. You don't choose what family you're born into or your gender or your sexuality or the colour of your skin. It's what you do with that.
Yeah.
I guess people want, I don't know if you owe it to them necessarily, but they want like transparency.
Yeah.
They want to know who you are and what you have before they accept what you may be saying. How did you reckon with some of that criticism? Because it's not easy.
No,
it's not easy.
It's really hard. I think in some ways I was really lucky that prior to this happening, I had my like low point and my mental health crisis, and I had rebuilt my life and my sense of myself, and I had gone through like a long period of like quite intense therapy that taught me coping mechanisms in times of crisis. And so I had those skills. I think that had this happened to me prior to that kind of turning point in my life, I probably would have struggled with it a lot. But I think I just always come back to this thing that I'm not always necessarily going to get things right or 100% correct, but my goal is to make Australian culture, society fairer and more equitable for people. And that is what kind of wakes me up in the morning. And so I'm just reminding myself that I'm trying to do the right thing and I'm trying to make housing affordable. I'm trying to like, stop, recreate systems to actually serve people rather than like profit or whatever. And so that I come back to, as much as there's always going to be naysayers that I'm trying to bring along with me, and I'm not going to get everyone on side.
Yeah, and you're not always going to get everything right. I guess it's something about being in the public eye. And I'd put myself in that, our ability to learn and listen and self-reflect. But to your original video and the original argument that you were making about wealth disparity or the difficulty with housing, irrespective of your background. Like, for example, I do come from a very working class refugee background. And even my parents, who had no education, my parents were educated until the age of 10 when they were pulled out of school, lived through war and trauma and dispossession, even they could afford a house in Sydney.
Yeah.
You know, like the fact that like zero skills, no language, a heap of trauma, and then you have people who have degrees and have done all the right things and still can't. So, I guess when I was reading about that in your book, I thought, yes, you can have come from privilege in 1983 or not and still bought a house in Sydney.
Yeah, like my dad grew up in the Central Coast, like I'm not from a lineage of privileged people. Like he lived on a farm when he was growing up, and then he went to Sydney Uni and he became an accountant. And then that's how he was able to get into the housing market before CGT came along and the discount came along and supercharged everything. Yeah. And that was like a lot of part of the Australian story is that you can come and you can buy your house and you
that
can
was
get
exactly, no matter who you are or where you come from, you can work hard and get property. We saw recently, because I'm not sure when this is going to play, we saw recently so many people taking to the streets under the guise of we care about housing, we care about immigration. How much empathy do you have for people who have those concerns, given there is a housing crisis, but there is also this kind of xenophobia that conceals policy failures?
Yeah. I think it's important to always maintain a level of empathy for people that have genuine concerns that may be pushed down the wrong path by like nefarious actors. Yeah. And I think that as much as I tried to warn people, and many people tried to warn people that there were going to be Nazis at these protests and they were very much involved in organizing these protests, somehow people could still plead ignorance that they went to this thing because they do have this, as I'm saying, they're also feeling like a failure because they can't get into housing, and then it's really easy. Like autocrats are really good at like making something really simple and pointing a finger and here's the problem. Yeah. Here's the problem and the solution over there, rather than being like, actually it's way messier and more complicated, or it's not actually, it's really simple, but then that means that we actually have to point our fingers at those people
who are benefiting. Who are benefiting and who are the architects of this hysteria.
Yeah. So it's always easier to punch down. And so we're all taught to do that, like in different ways in society. We're always taught to look for like easy solutions, or to just like to not think that we're part of the solution or the problem as well. And I think when you are invested in the housing market is set up in such a way that anyone new to the housing market is now the first line of defense over all these people that have been invested for years and like have lots of properties. It's young people that are now in the housing market that now are the most at risk from the housing system changing by being in negative equity. If like housing market starts to reverse and values go down. So that's how the housing system works, and that's a way more complicated economic and social problem to solve. How do we get through that how do we make housing more affordable for everyone without completely screwing over the livelihoods of people and their wealth, because that's how we've been taught to accumulate wealth. So it's easier than go, well, it's people that are new to the country that are the problem because we're full. Yeah. But that's just like the tale as old as time, and it has never led us anywhere positive.
I know, but it seems to keep working. That's the frustrating thing, right?
Yeah. Again, because it's easy.
Yeah.
It's easy. The thing that I'm trying to say as much as possible in this book is like, it takes hard work. The solutions take hard work, and it takes us all having sustained effort to change things for the better. Because like I think we all have this idea that there's going to be this hero that comes down, or maybe actually it's a big thing in religions that there's a hero that comes down and solves all our problems. And I think there's also this cultural idea that like a new president or prime minister or a new politician, an independent politician is going to come and like shake everything up and solve all our problems. It's like, no, like they're just like one piece in a really massive puzzle, and we're also pieces in that puzzle. And if we don't put ourselves on the table, to extend the metaphor, like if we're on the ground or still in the box of the puzzle, we're never going to complete that puzzle.
Yeah. You mentioned, religious figures or somebody coming and fixing this or being the way forward. I mean, that comes down to faith and belief. And I wonder if what you're suggesting is another iteration of this, because one of the main, I guess, thesis or the underlying theme in your book is that we have to have hope. I mean, it's because better things are possible. Yeah. Because I could, rewrite this book and go, look, things are fucked, but here's how we could try and make it a bit better. Yeah. You do believe in hope.
I do believe in hope. I think that hope is an action. That's what I kind of write in the book, and that's true. Like hope is something that we we do.
Yeah.
Whereas optimism is something that we like kind of broadly feel. We're just like blindly thinking that everything's going to work out. Like better things are possible if we do X, Y, Z, and we actually work to make better things possible. They're not possible if we don't. And so I think hope is an action that we need to believe that things like better things are possible, and then that's the first step. The second step is work towards that.
Okay, so I'm going to challenge you on that, because sometimes I wrangle with whether we need to, like, whether we are in a post-hope era where we have to accept the inevitability and disasters of climate change. We have to accept that a lot of the neoliberal policies that have widened inequality are very entrenched and difficult to reverse. So instead of hope, we accept that things are terrible and we just try and make it as bearable as possible. Am I sounding very bleak right now?
Yeah. Well, something I learned in my therapy was a thing called radical acceptance. And that's radically accepting, like, when your life is shit and everything feels like the world's against you, you just accept that you're feeling bad and there's all these pressures on you, and you now go, you can step above that. And then you can say, what can I actually change in my life? What can I do to make my life better, or in my case,
I feel like that's the same sort of thing. We're just packaging it differently. You have to accept the crap state of affairs and not think that you're going to repair it into a shiny new state. You're just chipping away to make it a little bit better.
Yeah, but if everyone does that,
right? Okay,
then that becomes like this massive force for change.
Okay,
and so I think that a lot of people, and that's like comes back to like basic things of like integrity. Like we're meant to like we supposedly hold integrity up in society, but it doesn't actually seem like we do, because like some really bad people have very high positions of power.
A lot of
no
bad
integrity.
people, yeah.
Yeah. But this idea that like if you succumb to that idea that like there's no point in me doing something good and positive or trying to make things better because the next person next to me isn't going to. Well, then if everyone thinks like that, then no one is going to do anything positive, and then there's nothing positive in the world. We can't sit in that like that. We have to believe that better things are possible. We have to do something about it, and maybe encourage the next person to also believe that and start doing things. And then it's that groundswell effect. It's just this idea that like we can't do anything, and then everyone thinks we can't do anything, and then nothing happens, and then we go, well, this has confirmed our theory that we can't do anything. Well, I would rather actually try to do something and be proven wrong by in that action rather than just being like, nah.
Well, you've tackled a lot of issues. You suggest better things are possible in climate change and the housing crisis, freedom of press, gender inequity. They're just some of them. These are all enormous challenges. Yeah. How did you go about not only writing the book, but feeling that you were in a position to offer? And you alluded to that earlier. You'd be like, well, some people would say, oh, I didn't go to university. Not that I in any way suggest that you have to go to university to write a book. Yeah. But how did you decide or, grapple with that process of tackling some of the biggest issues of our time and offering hope? Yeah.
I think there's probably two things wrapped up in that question. One was like the actual process, which I found quite isolating and lonely to write a book and think about how things are fucked and how we need to, I don't know, am I allowed to swear?
You are allowed to swear.
How things are fucked and...
Yeah, because the closer you look, the more you feel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But in that same process, I did find a lot of hope and people. But why I feel like I'm in the position to do this is because my skills are in storytelling and communication. That's what I've always done. And I can't expect, or we can't expect, although there are some very impressive atmospheric scientists that can communicate, most scientists shouldn't be the ones that are in charge of communicating that to as many people as possible. Same thing with economists. Like, we can't expect these people to also be fantastic orators or writers. They need to be focusing on their work. And so I can, through speaking to them, hopefully translate what they're saying into a way that's more consumable to more people. And so I guess that's where I got over my imposter syndrome. Yeah. Is by being like, well, what is my skill here? Why am I writing this book more than someone else? It's just because that's what feel like I'm here to do, is to be a conduit, but potentially to explain these concepts. And that's why my video went so viral in the first place, is that I made it simple for people to understand.
You mentioned how isolating it is to write a book. I'm just about to finish writing my second book. It's tough. I know, because obviously I am in media. I have a lot of friends who've either written books or have book deals. A lot of people don't realize how hard it is to keep writing. And I have friends who have book deals from 3 years ago and they haven't written a word. What was the process like for you, other than isolating?
A lot of imposter syndrome. I really questioned why I was doing this, or who would read this, and what right I had to put these words or try and figure out solutions to all these problems, as you kind of alluded to before. I think that I sat on it for a long time. I didn't write a whole lot. And because A, the problems are so big and nebulous and confusing and intricate, and then B, just like thinking like, I left every HSC exam early because I just wasn't interested in doing it. Like I hated like this idea of like that kind of version of learn by rote and like, and just regurgitate your essay to fit the question.
Yes.
Instead I kind of like wanted to ask lots of questions and then like kind of bring it. So through the process I started doing interviews, but I did find it really lonely. I'd come from owning a business with like 12 staff that I chose. There were people that had to hang out with me every day, and
you paid them to hang out with you.
Exactly, and like and be creative and like collaborate and make things together.
Yeah. To
then doing something completely by myself was just not how I'm wired.
Yeah.
So what I realized is I bought myself a new laptop that was bright enough to sit outside. I'd go to the Botanic Gardens. I'd sit in the grass. I'd get to watch the world go by as I tapped away. And then when my laptop ran out of battery, I'd go to the art gallery and like sit in the members lounge with like the nice old ladies that come in at lunchtime or whatever. And just be a part of the hustle and bustle of like living in a city and having that human interaction with the nice ladies at the desk, or like someone that asked me for a bottle opener in Botanic Gardens one time, and just like had an interaction with this person. I'm like, oh, that's who I'm writing this book for.
Yeah.
And so like when I was just trying to sit at home, not seeing any of the world I was trying to save, quote unquote. Yeah. It felt so much further and distant. So that was my cheat code, I guess.
What did you enjoy most about writing? Did it actually give you hope? Did it make you believe more that better things are possible?
There was lots of periods where I was angry and frustrated at like these dead ends that we get to in terms of policy, like, and the way our political system works. But there's also, I do see like a lot of hope. I think we have a really great democratic system that when more people understand it can be utilized to affect sweeping change. I'm not seeing that right now, but I think that there's still hope for that in the future. And by talking to experts and everyday people in Sydney, but around the country, like I did a road trip and met people all through out the country. Like this book, I'm sorry, Tasmania, but this book has been written on
the mainland.
All the mainland states and territories. But I'll get to Tassie down. I'll get down there at some stage. And so I did meet a lot of just random people that didn't agree with me, farmers that have been working the land for generations. But then I would talk to them about regenerative agriculture and think about a new way of treating the soil and talk to them about that. They're like, oh, there is something, we have this, like they do care about the land, and here's this way that we can make the land healthier. And like you can get into these conversations with people that would disagree with you on 100 different things. You go, that's an inner city latte sipping lefty greeny soy boy. But you can get past that conversation if you just get past that first wall of defense, which is just us all put into categories.
You went viral on a video about housing, which essentially made you a household name, but now you don't make very much content. Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, the whole creator economy is just broken. You can't really make a lot of money from making progressive content. The system is designed so that means that we can't make content. Like they don't want us to make money from their thing. Like trying to sell a book on Instagram is impossible because as soon as you put a link or something in, like they'll be like, no, like I'll go from having 15,000 views on a story to 500.
And like shadow banning, I mean, it's hard to prove, but I feel it when I do particular topics or whatever. Like I feel that the algorithm punishes, and sometimes I'm like, is this in my head? Or
no, I think it's definitely real. I'd notice it on certain topics. I don't notice it so much now on content about Gaza because maybe the broader conversation has shifted to for the algorithms like, well, I have to like I can't shadow ban everything about Gaza now because then they would have no content because a lot of people are creating content about it now comparative to like the early days after October 7th. So like,
but if you try and sell something, if you try and sell a book or whatever, or you've tried to boost something, it doesn't seem to favor that or to display it.
Because their whole system is built by, you want to sell a product, you give us money and we'll help you sell it. So if you're trying to sell a product based on your own following that you've cultivated on their platform, they're like, well, no. We need to be involved. We need a slice of that pie. And so unless you like, if I have money to give them, then they'll make my book posts go a lot better. You know?
But even there are a lot of like social media experts who say even paid boosted stuff isn't getting the returns that it used to. And sometimes it actually works against you. It's a strange world to try and operate within and understand because I feel the goalposts just keep moving.
Yeah. And I think as passive consumers of content, we're not really understanding what's behind the algorithms and what's behind the economics of the algorithms. And so that when we see a creator then suddenly try and sell something or try and make a little bit of money from using their following, we go, oh, that's lame.
Well, this exchange is probably going to get shadow banned.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to see it.
And so I think there's two things happening. There's the algorithm, which is doing a lot of like social control, but there's also ourselves doing social control where it's tall poppy syndrome in Australia, where like if a creator does want to do something cool, outside of the bounds of like what their normal content is like, people are like, no, why would you do that unless they have this really big critical mass of like fandom. And so then it's like, yeah, you did it. Like Mr. Beast releasing his chocolate bars or whatever, like his fans are like, cool, you released a chocolate bar, like that's cool, but there's like a massive gap between getting to that stage and like here. And I don't think that Google like the fact that Mr. Beast is so rich and is so powerful because he can now has a say over how YouTube runs. He can say to them, this change to the algorithm or the recommendation is bad, I'm going to tell all my followers about it, and now however many millions of people that he has that are on his side will be angry at Google or Meta. So that's why I feel that Meta doesn't want to have that same problem. On YouTube, you can make money from it, like the ad revenue. There's a better split than on Meta. I think people just think that you make money because you get views. And
people are like, wow, 1 million views, 100,000 views.
That must mean you have $1 million.
What about TikTok?
Same problem.
Yeah.
I think that they do have a creator fund in America. I don't know that's here. Again, I've never made any money from any of my views. I've never been paid a cent from any view that I've ever gotten on any app.
That's wild.
Except for the only thing, like, unless I've done like a brand deal and I made a video about like recycling mobile phones or a custom-owned bank, I can make money through the process of like.
But not by the number of views that you've had.
Not a cent. No.
So at one point after I guess the glory and the reach and a bit of ego, because it's like, wow, a lot of people are listening to me talk, you know, and I've been there too. It's like, wow, that's traveling. You're like, I just spent all that time creating all that. Like, this is my energy, it's my creative capital, it's my intellectual capital for nothing. For nothing,
yeah. And I can't.
Other than like a public service announcement, which is lovely, but that doesn't pay the bills.
Exactly. And right. And so it's not sustainable at all.
Yeah.
And we've all just been, and this is a really big problem I see for journalism, is that like we've all been trained not to want to pay for any kind of journalism. And like, I know that we're in this early stages of like reframing that, and you're doing that now, but we still have to like, there's just a change in everyone's brains that we need to be like, actually, we used to pay $2, like a gold coin to get the newspaper, and we're happy to do that. And there were ads in there, and we understood that economy worked that way. Or we watched the news and we had to watch 7 ads between the headlines, and we just accepted that. And the ads are like so ingrained in our culture. Like there are so many things that we just say in our vernacular today, which are from ads.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is not, I can't see that really happening today based on like a skippable YouTube ad or like a thing that you swipe past when you're doing your brain right.
What do you hope readers take from your book? Is it to reach the people that were watching your videos with more than a 90-second explanation? Like what do you want them to take from Better Things Are Possible?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't possibly explain all of the things that have caused the housing crisis in a 90-second video, or the things that go into like us not being able to make meaningful steps towards mitigating climate change. So a book is a really good place. Another answer to your previous question is that like I would come up with something that I need to put in my book, and I'm like, well, I can't make content for this because I need to put it in the book. So I'd rather really tease things out. And I know
Yeah.
that not everyone is going to be a book reader, and I understand that
Well,
probably
there's the
some
audio
people.
book. The people like listen to books. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that like obviously not the patience, like our attention span is going really short. So
Yeah.
in some ways, like writing a book is kind of madness in like how short our attention span is. But
Yeah.
I also wanted to have something that exists outside the algorithms and away from Mark Zuckerberg. Unfortunately, in the throes of Jeff Bezos, but yeah. So I
Yeah,
think,
like choose your evil.
but I think that what I want people to take from the book is that A, better things are possible. B, that takes us all working towards it. And we just need to get back to community conversations, connection, having real conversations with each other about the situations that we're in and working together to fix them, rather than expecting someone else to come along and fix it, as we talked about before, or believing that there is no hope. Because if we just say that there is no hope, then the planet will continue to be exploited and extracted and plundered, and inequality will continue to grow, and the concentration of power will continue. And so that's not fun for anyone. It's not fun for us unless you're the one at the top. And even then, I was like, why? I don't understand like all these billionaires making their bunkers and stuff in New Zealand. And what do they think is going to happen if everything collapses? Like the security guards are going to care about Mark Zuckerberg and his compound and continue to protect him? Like they're the ones with the muscle. Like so I don't know. I don't really understand. Like we have this like romantic notion almost of like dystopia. Like we kind of, it's like when you're about to stack it on the skateboard or your bike. You get the death wobbles, and there's a moment of like almost clarity where you're like, well, I'm going to stack it, and I'm going to get a massive graze
this
on my
inevitability.
you just accept it. And there's a moment for a second, and then the pain happens, and you're like, I wish that I hadn't stacked my bike.
Yeah.
But there was just this moment. I think we're in that moment right now where we're just kind of like, oh, the free fall is kind of nice. Like we just put our hands off the steering wheel and just come what may.
But your skull's going to crush
exactly.
in a moment unless you break your fall.
Yeah, so I would rather try and like get myself out of the death wobbles and get society out of the death wobbles than stack it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's an analogy, isn't it?
I hope you were wearing a helmet. It's the best we can do. All right, thank you so much for your time. This was a really fascinating chat.
Thanks for having me.